100%. All right, so we're gonna get into let's start off with the NFL. Got a new stuff. I added some sound to the NFL clip, and here we go.
All right.
Oh, look at that! They're cheering for us more than anything. That's amazing. All right, so we are going to head on to the NFL. Okay, Bri Man, you are. I don't know. I didn't really follow your Twitter posts. I would say 100%. I did a little bit, and I couldn't really gauge.
Yep.
Because I didn't follow every post. I couldn't gauge exactly how you were feeling about your Miami Dolphins. Everything that I had read out there seems to think like the Dolphins knocked it out of the park. I want your take on your Miami Dolphins.
That is correct. Most Dolphins, most national media loved this Dolphins draft. There was one guy, I don't remember his name, gave him an A+, and I was just like, what the hell were you watching this weekend? All right. So let's just get into it. Look, this, and I know this is not going to sit well with any Dolphin fans who might be watching or paying attention to this. I'm not in love with this draft. Not at all. And there's one very primary reason, and then there's sort of a secondary reason. But let's just go one pick at a time. I'll grade each individual pick for you, and then I'll give you. Now, when you hear me grade each individual pick, you're going to be like, "Well, wait a minute. This doesn't sound like the kind of grade that you might give them." But you also have to ding them for omissions and certain choices that they may have made. So right off the bat, pick round 1, pick 6. This draft fell almost chalk-like, just kind of the way we thought. First 3 guys were quarterbacks. By the way, nice job by you when you mocked Trey Lance to the Niners. Good call.
Yeah, baby.
Great call. And then I screwed up our mock draft by not just like sticking to what I knew was going to happen, which was the Falcons taking Kyle Pitts, and I had the Broncos trading up. And if I had stuck to that, you and I would have put together, I think, a pretty solid mock draft. But as I feared it would happen, Atlanta took Pitts. The Bengals reunited Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, and that left the Dolphins with their choice of either Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. They took Jalen Waddle, and although I like Jalen Waddle, I don't love him. I don't love him the way I love Devontae Smith. I'm a big Devontae Smith fan, and I think he's going to be a hell of an NFL pro. The guy glides across the field. He's able to separate, like his separation skills are immense. Now Jalen Waddle can separate quickly off the snap too, because he's a speedster. He's a 4-3 guy. The Dolphins have a couple of 4-3 guys on the field now between Waddle and Will Fuller. I give that a B. I would have given it an A- probably if they had taken Devontae Smith. But I do think, and the Dolphins will never admit to this, but I do think that the Dolphins' plan got thrown off a little bit. I believe when they made the initial trade to go from 3 to 12 and then utilize some of the assets, the draft capital that they got from San Francisco to move back up to 6, I really believe that they thought they were going to have their choice of 4 guys. Because I think they thought Pitts and Chase and Waddle and Devontae would all be there. I believe that, because I think they thought with 4, Atlanta was either going to trade out or they were going to draft a quarterback to eventually replace Matty Ice. And I think now, as we know, Matt Ryan is probably there to stay for a few years. So at least he's there for at least the remaining 2 years of his contract. And I would not even be remotely surprised if they signed him for another few years after that.
Yeah.
So, and then I think they thought that the Bengals would do the intelligent thing and draft somebody to fucking protect Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow, I mean, listen, I like Joe Burrow a lot, but I know Penny Sewell is not the sexy pick that Jamar Chase is.
Yeah.
But that would have been the wiser pick. But that being said, the Bengals actually still had a pretty good draft. Anyways, so the Dolphins had to choose between these two guys, and I think they wanted Waddle all along. Obviously, I think, Tua, I think, was live, streaming or TikToking or whatever when the pick came in, and he was like, J-Dub, let's go. He was all excited. So, Tua was happy with the pick. Listen, I think I don't know what his ceiling is. I know there's the ridiculous comparisons to Tyreek Hill, and I'm not even going to go there. I think that's a ceiling. That's an ultimate ceiling. That's probably pie in the sky ceiling. I've seen some comps to Santana Moss, which honestly, as good a player as Santana Moss was, that would actually be a little underwhelming to me. Like, I'd like something between Santana Moss and Tyreek Hill. How about that?
Wow.
And my brother and I were going over what we thought would be a good first year for Jalen Waddle. I believe that a good first year for him would be somewhere in the 40 to 50 catch range, somewhere in the 650 to 750 catch range, with perhaps a total between rushing, probably about 100 rushing yards. Remember, they will give him the ball. He'll get a lot of end arounds and stuff like that. To me, I would say combined, if you could get 800 yards and somewhere between 6 to 8 touchdowns out of him, that's a good first year.
Okay.
That's a really good first year. I don't know how realistic that is. Remember, this Dolphins offense is actually, at least in terms of the receiving core, that's a subtle hint for what's coming, pretty deep. I mean, you've got Fuller on one side, Parker on the other. You've now got Waddle in a slot. You've got Gasicki at tight end. All right, so that's my grade for that pick. It's a B. I mean, it's a solid pick. I think Devontae's going to be better, but what do I know?
Okay.
Their second pick in the first round, pick number 18, Jalen Phillips. This pick gets an A-. This is tied with another pick that I'll talk about momentarily for my favorite pick in this draft. Jalen Phillips, I believe, was the best edge rusher / defender in this draft. Certainly the one with the most ridiculous ceiling. There are some concerns with him. He did quit UCLA at one point, although I think that had a lot to do with Chip Kelly. But the guy's been concussed a couple times. So that does worry you when a college player has already got a couple concussions under his belt and he hasn't even hit the pro level yet. So, but his film is nuts. This guy is exactly what the Dolphins needed. An edge rusher who could put significant pressure on the quarterback. And I love the idea of him and Emmanuel Ogbah on opposite ends rushing the quarterback. So that's an A- pick. Mm-hmm. Here's where the grades start to dip. Round 2, pick 36, which for all intents and purposes is basically like a late round first pick. This is a guy who should be contributing right away. They picked safety Javon Holland from Oregon. Not even the best safety on the board. That designation belongs to Trevon Merrick, who was picked later from TCU. He although he was available. Now, Javon Holland was a guy who sat out last year, so his film that you're going to be judging him off of primarily is from 2019 and 2018. He is a bit of a ball hawk. Don't get me wrong. He had 9 picks, I think, in his career at Oregon for a safety. That's obviously pretty impressive. And he does seem to be around the ball. But when you're talking about, and this is where I struggle with the Dolphins, especially with Chris Grier, because Chris Grier loves to draft best player available. He's a BPA guy. He's not a fill needs guy. Now I don't know about you. I believe that a general manager needs to draft for both need and best player available at the same time. You need to mix those two. Those two need to be married. Yeah. They don't need to be mutually exclusive. I believe you have to have a combination of those two when you're making picks. Unless you're a Super Bowl champion and you don't have a lot of holes, then you can absolutely take best player available. But the Dolphins, first of all, the first 2 guys I mentioned, they will be starting for this team, barring disaster. Jalen Waddle and Jalen Phillips, they're going to be starting for this team.
Okay.
There's no question about it. Those are not depth guys. Those are starters in this league. Now at 36, safety, listen, and I get it, right? Like, the Dolphins I will say this, the Dolphins did a good job of filling out their depth this offseason. But that's something that really good teams do. The Dolphins are a 10-6 team. They did not make the playoffs. They're still trying to take that next step. You do need to, I believe, you do need to actually be drafting slightly more for need than you do for depth. And the Dolphins at safety, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was a position of strength, but it was certainly a position that didn't necessarily need to be addressed with pick number 36. Okay? Mm-hmm. They have a good young budding safety in Brandon Jones. They have Eric Rowe, and they still have Bobby McCain. Now, if they're going to take Holland and cut Bobby McCain and save $6 million on the cap, okay, fine. But then again, that's also putting a lot of pressure on young Javon Holland to perform and step in right away. So, anyways, that pick for me is a C. Pick number 4, they traded up with the Giants 8 slots. They went from 50 to 42. And they selected offensive tackle from Notre Dame, Liam Eichenberg. This pick is getting another A-. This is my second A- pick. These are my two favorite picks in this draft are Jalen Phillips and Liam Eichenberg. I love Liam Eichenberg. First of all, I love Notre Dame offensive linemen in general. Those guys generally perform well at the next level. It's kind of a factory for that. You know, in like certain teams are factories for certain positions, right? Like Alabama is a factory for running backs. Ole Miss seems to be a factory for wide receivers. Notre Dame Notre Dame used to be a factory for like tight ends too, but Notre Dame is a factory for offensive linemen. And Liam Eichenberg is the ultimate plug and play guy. I think the Dolphins line now, and I think they're going to put Liam Eichenberg at right tackle to protect to his blind side. Liam Eichenberg is going to be one of those guys who makes somewhere between 3 and 4 Pro Bowls in his career. It is just solid. Just like solid, gives you a solid 10 to 12 years, 13 years of production, and is just a guy you can just depend on. And if Tua is going to be this team's long-term answer at the quarterback position, if he's your franchise quarterback, you need a franchise right tackle, not a left tackle, a right tackle for a left-handed quarterback. Liam Eichenberg will fill that need. Okay, so now back to the C grades again. Round 3, pick number 81, they take tight end Hunter Long from Boston College. Now, again, the Dolphins are looking further down the road with picks like this. Now, don't get me wrong, Hunter Long, if you wanted to play in like a 2 tight end set, he and Mike Gesicki might have a fun first year together, especially when you've got Fuller and Waddle, those 2 burners on opposite ends of each other. You could really wreak some havoc here with teams if you wanted to do like a double tight end set with Fuller and Waddle, on opposite ends. You're going to be looking at you can forget about your single high safety coverage. They're going to have to there's going to be a lot of cover too against the Dolphins defense. But at this pick. And again, I want to set you up for things to come. Now, at this point, you have allowed a number of running backs to pass by off the board. Okay, in the first round, you saw Najee Harris go to Pittsburgh, which was the worst kept secret in this entire NFL draft. In a somewhat surprise pick, you had Travis Etienne going to Jacksonville to team up with his college quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. That was a bit of a surprise also because the one position that you might have been able to say the Jags were kind of loaded at, not loaded, but at least solid, was running back. They picked up Carlos Hyde in the offseason, and they had undrafted free agent James Robinson coming off an awesome season in year 1. And now you've added Travis Etienne to that mix. So that's a hell of a running back room that the Jags have right now. And then now just kind of reversing, going back here a little bit, the Dolphins at that 36 pick, they had a chance to move up even just 1 or 2 slots, maybe 3 spots to get Javonte Williams, and they let the Broncos jump in front of them, and the Broncos took Javonte Williams. And that ensured that this Dolphins running back room was not going to get the boost that I believe it needed. And ultimately, my final grade on this draft heavily factors in the fact that they, to me, did not get a viable running back. Did they pick a running back? Yeah, they did with the 7th pick, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a moment. All right, but going back to Hunter Long, the tight end. Again, very similar to Javon Holland. You have players in that tight end room. Actually, the Dolphins' tight ends the Dolphins had the most productive tight end, the most production from the tight end position, I believe, in like team history last year between Mike Gesicki, Smythe, and Shaheen. Those guys gave you really good production. And now I know Gesicki is I think this is his contract here, so I think the Dolphins are thinking about the future just in case they cannot re-sign Mike Gesicki, so I kind of get it, right? But at the same time, look, this would have been a good spot since look, I don't know. I wouldn't have even cared at what running back. Then at this point, you're getting into like the Trey Sermon area of running backs, which I was not interested in. I wanted one of those three guys, and I'm crying like a little baby over it. So that's just the way it is. So the Hunter Long, I'm going to give a C because, again, your tight end room was good. Is it better? Yes. You've given it more depth, and yes, now you probably have a guy who can fill Gesicki's shoes. Certainly a more well-rounded tight end than Gesicki. He's not the athletic freak that Gesicki is, but he's a good blocker. He's a good receiver. He's a better mix of a tight end. And then, okay, then you had in round 7, 2 picks. Larnell Coleman, an offensive tackle from UMass, whatever. You want me to assign a grade to it? I don't know, a B, whatever. And then the last pick, this was, I put a tweet out there about this too, kind of likening this to the end scene in the movie Rudy, when the crowd is all chanting for Rudy, right? And Dan Devine is just sort of looking around and he's like, fuck it, throw Rudiger in, let him have a couple plays, right? That's what Chris Greer just did for Dolphin fans. He Dan Devined us. He was like, fuck it. Dolphin fans and Dolphin media, local Miami media, clamoring for a running back. So Chris Greer decides to throw us all a fucking bone at the end of the draft. And the Dolphins draft Jared Dokes from Cincinnati, a guy who I've never heard of. His college production was okay. Nothing special. It was fine. Mm-hmm. That's how the Dolphins addressed it. So my overall grade for this Dolphins draft is a C+. Now, that's not going to sit well with Dolphin fans. I know it, because they're just going to be like, bullshit, national media, this and that. Well, first of all, if you're going to go by the national media, you're already kind of proven that you're really not worthy of weighing in on something like this, because the national media is stretched very thin. You have to remember, these guys are jacks of all trades. They're master of none. If you want to get a really good Dolphins draft grade, look more closely at local media. They're more tied into the everyday ins and outs of the team and the needs of the team, not the national media. The national media has a very broad, high level, 40,000, 50,000 foot view of it. Okay. They don't have enough time. Those guys don't have enough time to look at every single team and say, okay, this is this team's needs, and they addressed it, and they needed this player at this spot, blah, blah, blah. So this Dolphins draft for me is a C+. There are a couple lists. First of all, if you're going to sit there and say, oh no, well, they did draft a running back. Yeah. Okay. They drafted a running back with the last pick. If this guy makes the team, it's a miracle. So now what you're telling me, Miami Dolphins, is that you really want to go to battle with Myles Gaskin. Now, look, Myles Gaskin was a nice contributor last year. He's a great RB2. He's a complimentary running back. He is not a starting franchise running back. Let me tell you something for the uneducated, okay? Shane, you know what an RPO offense is, right? It's a run-pass option offense. Yes. What it basically means is that the quarterback has the option to either run the ball or pass it. Without a really viable running back, a legitimate threat behind you, the RPO offense isn't really going to be successful. I'm sorry, but Myles Gaskin and Jared Dokes and Salvon Ahmed, Patrick Laird, I can't even get that name out without laughing. Those guys are not viable threats in an RPO offense. Those are not individuals that you have to game plan for. As a defensive coordinator, if you were going to line up against the Miami Dolphins, you were going to say, okay, we have to game plan for guys like Jalen Waddle. We have to game plan for guys like Mike Gesicki. We have to game plan for guys like Devontae Parker and Will Fuller, not Myles Gaskin. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that opposing teams are going to put 8 in the box. because you can't really do that with all those with all those offensive weapons. You're going to see a lot of double high safety cover 2 coverages against the Dolphins because they've got a lot of guys. They've got 2 guys who can now stretch the field, and they've got 2 tight ends theoretically who can go over the middle. So fair enough. But the RPO offense would be a lot more scarier and a lot more ferocious and a lot more threatening if you had a viable running back. If you had a Javonte Williams back there who could give you 1,200 yards on the ground and 300 to 500 yards in the air and get you a total of 10 to 15 to 16 touchdowns a year total, when he's eventually in his prime. I'm not talking about rookie year. But when he's, if he's that kind of player that a lot of scouts think he will be, that's a viable threat. Miles Gaskin, let me give you an idea of what Miles Gaskin does.
Every time you say Miles Gaskin, I think of Carol Baskins.
Okay. Anyways, Miles Gaskin is he'll take what the defense will give him. So, if it's like 3rd and 5 let's say it's like 2nd and, or 3rd and 3, maybe he'll get the 3 yards, but he won't get you any more than that. Like, okay, so maybe that gets you the first down. Great. But he's just not a guy who's going to break one. He's not a home run threat. He's an RB2. He's a complimentary running back. He's a really good one. Now, a lot of Dolphins fans might argue, well, if he only started 7 games last year, played in 10 total. Between receiving and rushing the ball, I think he gave you close to like 800 yards total, which, okay. So maybe if you double all that and you factor, maybe you get 1,600 yards. But again, the thing with him is he just doesn't have that home run hitting ability. He's not, and look, I think he was a 7th round pick as well. So the Dolphins are clearly telling you, we do not value this position. Now, I find that particularly odd in an RPO offense. How do you not value the running back position when the first letter of RPO is run? And I think I'll end it there. That seems like a good spot to end it. C+ for the Dolphins draft.
Wow. I'm actually trying to put a poll on Twitter right now regarding this. Yeah. And haven't been able to get done with it yet.
No one's going to agree with me. I'm going to get completely trashed, but I don't care.
In the short term, I want you to, if you guys haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And smash that subscribe button, smash the notification bell, smash the like button, smash everything. And then if you can also give us who you think are the top 7 replacements for the Friday cast, or just do as many as you can. Particularly, who the hell plays Smokey in a Friday recast? Give it up. Let us know what you think, and then we're going to be getting onto that at the end of the show. So I'm going to put on, who do you think had the best draft in the AFC East? I'm going to tag you in here. Bri Man thinks Finns.
I think the Jets had the best. I think the Jets. Although that's all on Zach Wilson. And I'm so pissed that they took Elijah Moore, who was a wide receiver from Ole Miss, who I love. I really did not want him going there. Also because I love the guy and now I have to hate him. And now too, I'm very worried about him burning us for the next 10 to 12 years. So that sucks. I really didn't want to deal with that. I was really hoping he would spend 13 years in Miami or somewhere else. Instead, it's going to be in the Jets. So that's gonna suck. By the way,
Bills, Dolphins.
I actually kind of kept track of the Bills draft.
Patriots.
Very similar to the Dolphins.
So the Bills, for me, they got what they needed. They didn't do anything special. They weren't going to have a great draft. They picked late. They're not going to have a great draft. They're going to have an okay draft. I trust their GM. I think they have a great GM. But so my whole thing here is with them, they got a couple offensive linemen. They got a couple edge rushers. 2 things that they both kind of need. They got some depth. So I'm very happy with what their draft. But it's not a great draft. I think it's going to be about a B. And that's probably about where they're at. That's about as good as they could do where they were, and I think they did about as good as they could do.
I agree. I would give them a B to a B plus. I actually the only omission, again, very similar to the Dolphins, is I would have liked to have seen them gotten a running back.
But the running back class this year was kind of thin. Next year, I think it's going to be a little bit better. So
but that being said, what I liked about what they did though, those first two picks at defensive end, Gregory Rousseau and Carlos Boogie Basham. Mm-hmm. First of all, for Boogie Basham to fall to number 61 for them,
Hughes is going to probably be leaving soon, so they need an edge rusher, and that's what they did.
But those two guys might be your two edge guys for the next 5 to 8 years.
That'd be awesome,
and they might be very productive. Rousseau is a really interesting guy. He's kind of an animal. From Miami, he and Jalen Phillips are really, those two Miami guys. I actually think there were 3 edge rushers drafted from Miami. But I also I like what the Bills did. They built the trenches, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they addressed defensive line, they addressed offensive line with their first 4 picks. And then, you know what? Marquez Stevenson is probably one of those guys who, with Josh Allen, will do very well. Receiver from Houston. So, I'm
not really worried about their offense so much. So, if you want to do anything, you got to improve the offensive line. That's what they kind of did. They're trying to get some offensive linemen, hoping that one pans out. And then they got a couple edge rushers, and that hoping that one pans out. If they both pan out, awesome. If they don't, then
they did pick the guy with my favorite name in the draft in round 6, Rashad Wild Goose.
That's amazing.
He's a cornerback from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Rashad Wild Goose.
That's amazing. That is pretty epic, actually.
It's fucking awesome.
It really is.
That sounds like a Top Gun call sign, right? Wild Goose.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a horse.
in the Kentucky
Baffert,
Derby.
Huh? How about Bob Baffert getting his 7th?
I know.
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I mean, so we were gonna watch it. My wife got so frustrated with everybody not wearing masks in the stand.
Oh, I know.
She was like, "I'm done.
COVID's over." I mean, you might as well just, whether you want to believe it or not, apparently it's over.
Yeah.
So
that is, I put the post out there. If you want to go ahead and vote on it, that'd be awesome. The post is up. Who do you think had the best draft in the AFC East? The Bri Man thinks the Finns were at a C+, but National Media says A. NFL draft, all that stuff, all those hashtags. And then, so go ahead and vote there. It's going to be up there for an hour. I mean, not an hour, a day. And then we'll see how it's doing by the end of the show, at least, in about 20 to 30 minutes. All right, so let's get into, I gave you my quick take on the Bills. The Bills, fine draft. It wasn't anything exceptional. I did like how the Niners went with Lance instead of going with either Fields or your boy McCorkle. I thought that was really smart. I thought that was.
But of course, McCorkle fell right into the Patriots' lap.
Yeah, and I thought,
of course, he did.
Yeah, and that's a good fit for him too. Cam Newton's not the long-term solution there. They need somebody they can manipulate. Yep. They got somebody they can manipulate, and they can kind of count on for kind of just being consistent, I guess. He doesn't have to light the scoreboard up. I mean, Tom Brady for years didn't light the scoreboard up.
He's got weapons. Let's say that. Mac Jones is going into a situation with weapons.
Yeah.
The Patriots have been big this offseason.
The Patriots are setting themselves up for long-term success, and that is not a weird thing to say. It's not. That's what they did, and they're just doing it again.
I hope for all you AFC East fans, like both of us, I hope you enjoyed the Patriots having their one off year, because that's probably going to be it.
I thought they should finish second or third this year.
Maybe they'll be 9-8 this year.
Yeah, it's gonna.
They're going to be competitive.
They'll be close to a winning record. Probably have. It depends on who's their quarterback. If they end up going because Newton can't show up, then they're going to have a losing record. But if Newton stays there, they're going to be a little over 500 probably, like you said, like 9-8.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 7-10. 7-10 is probably their worst case scenario, and there's just so much talent around the quarterback position. They just loaded up this offseason, which is a very un-Belichickian thing to do, to load up in free agency. That's not his MO, but he did this year, and I don't know. Some people think that was desperation. Some people think that was just, hey, we have all these assets, we've got all this money, we need to fucking spend it for once. So we'll see. The state of the Yankees.
All right, we're already racking up some votes here. We already have, I think, almost 10 votes.
Okay.
So, all right, we'll check back in that in a little bit. I can actually tell you right now who is winning the votage.
Jets.
It's loading, and hold on. Right now, the Jets and the Finns are tied, both 44%.
Oh, okay.
All right, I just.
It's not surprising that the Jets. I mean, the Dolphins will probably end up winning it just because I think a lot of Dolphin fans felt like this was a great draft. Mm-hmm. I'm not with you. I wish I was. I'm not.
Yeah.
But again, here's the thing. It's not ridiculous. The NFL draft is so subjective. You really should never grade an NFL draft until 3 years after that draft has taken place.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't really particularly like drafts, because 95% of the people that are picked are crapshoots.
Agree.
You don't really know who's going to be the mature, who's going to be, great, who's going to work hard. You don't really know all that for the most part.
I will tell you that Jalen Waddle, though, gave us one of the greatest it's already a top 10 gift for me. Like, it might be like a top 10 all-time gift for me of when he's in the green room and his name gets called, and he just kind of like, he's got his glasses on, so he just like gets up, looks at his family, and darts away like they're all like celebrating and going in for the hug, and he just like takes off. You got to just look it up.
Route?
Just look it up. Just look it up. It's so great. I mean, now, to add some context, he already knew. He was just waiting. He had gotten the call, and they had already celebrated. He just hadn't heard like his name called yet by Goodell, but he had already gotten the call and had already celebrated with his family in the green room.
Then he took it
prior
down
to,
and he was like, gone.
Yeah, but it was just so great because he gets up, straightens out his suit, looks over to his right where his family is, boom, darts away, and they're all like celebrating because the name is officially called. It's hilarious.
Finns are ahead in the pick. Nobody has picked the Bills yet, and I'm not surprised because they did not have the best draft out of that. They probably had the worst draft in a draft that was all pretty good. It was AFC East drafted well this year. Not according to you, but I got it. All right.
No. I mean, the Patriots.
Well, you didn't think the Finns did well, so. You're upset with
I don't think they did great.
Yeah,
but I'll put it to you this way. If the Dolphins had taken Javonte Williams and just moved up a couple of picks, that would have gone – I would have at least been in the B+ category.
Okay.
There would have been a full grade up if they had just gotten one of those running backs, a full grade up.
Gotcha. All right.
Also, the Dolphins did not draft a center, by the way. That's another reason why I dinged them. They didn't draft a center. They're depending on Matt Skura, okay, or Michael Dieter. So, okay – a center's a pretty important position on the offensive line. I mean, right after your tackles, it's center. So you could even make the argument that in a normal offense with a right-handed quarterback, left tackle is the most important, center second. The center is snapping the ball all the time. Sorry, I know. All right, let's just get out of the state of the Yankees. I had my reasons, Dolphin fans. It wasn't, it wasn't just because, I'm a negative Nelly and I want to just be pessimistic and pissed off about everything. No, I had my reasons.
I know.
You fucked up. You trusted us.
Yeah.
That's Chris Greer.